Now, lifeadministration.com presents the Life Administration Podcast. Here are your hosts, Leslie Loftus and Ryan Taylor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Life Administration. My name is Ryan Taylor, and that's my fourth take. With me, as always, is
Leslie Loftus. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry. He's just suddenly got tongue-tied. I don't think this has ever happened before, but
I don't know what happened.
4 takes to start the episode.
I mean, to get a sentence out that I've
Yeah.
said hundreds of times.
Yes.
I mean, not only in the episodes, but in sound checks and stuff.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what just happened there. Crazy. It's like I'm a baby learning how to talk.
There we go. It kind of was. Yep.
It was like that because I even made some mumbling noise. All right. Anyway, welcome. We are now jumping into part 2 of our Life Administration for New Parents. So that first
Life Administration for Parents. This one now is specifically for new parents. So we're looking at 0 to 12 months here.
Absolutely. And so hopefully what you heard in the last one, even though we had to kind of rush at the end to kind of come into the wire, is you heard that we have a new Discord and that you are listening to this episode, which means you can now click your phone, go into the description right where the podcast is, and click that Discord link.
Mm-hmm. And that's where you can send us questions, chat with us,
contribute to the show, get in on live call-ins, all sorts of stuff. It's all going to be coming to rolling out very quickly, but we need you guys in there. So click on the link and trickle on in and spend some time with us. But other than that, we're going to jump right into it, right? We're going to quick fire here.
So let's do it because this is the kind of stuff that Ryan and I have been known to go long on.
Yeah, we're definitely passionate about kiddos and raising kids and parents in general and stuff like that. But also,
there's a ton of life administration and raising kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
and as a side note, with the last episode, hopefully if you don't have kids yet, you didn't tune out because we're kind of calling out how these things, these practices apply in your adult life.
Right.
If you don't have kids.
And
so
then also
important.
we want you to aim.
Yeah.
We want you to be able to see, even, so even if it's 10 years away from you now, well, you listen to it once and then you know it exists, and already just having a little bit of pre-knowledge before you go into even the analysis of when or how many kids you want, or if, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Really helpful.
So my first point to pre-parents is you don't know what tired is.
You don't.
You don't know what tired is. You don't. That's just my joke. He's like, you don't know.
Yeah, well, we can get to it, I'm sure, in a bit because, we're going to talk about what kind of sleep parents need, and I'm going to shock you with some.
You're like,
numbers.
But Ryan, I was in college and I pulled all-nighters. I don't care. I don't care. I pulled all-nighters as well. Doesn't stack up. Yeah, it doesn't stack up. It's a whole different thing. So let's rock and roll. Let's get it.
Okay. Okay, this is kind of a timeline, not really a timeline, but what we're aiming for is contented, happy baby, well-fed, good sleeper, hitting the milestones in general where they need to hit them.
Yep.
And a happy marriage by the time that the terrible twos hit, which actually the terrible twos really start somewhere north of 9 months. They kind of start about the time your child can start crawling and getting away from mom and dad. And we will talk about why that is, because it's kind of it's a practical issue.
I'm a mindset guy. So we reframe terrible twos. We reframe it to terrific twos.
Oh,
terrific
Lord.
Twos.
They're not terrific though.
They're terrific at causing you grief.
We'll call them the trying twos.
The trying twos. Yeah. Tribulation twos.
Tribulation twos. Which just because we like to have you think ahead for things here, I am now a mother of 4 teenagers, and let me tell you, I read about this a bit when my kids were young, and boy, if it didn't come true. So the terrible twos are really about a conflict of independence that your child is now can be a little bit more independent. And so they don't know how independent they want to be. They don't have any boundaries or frustration tolerances that they can set for themselves. And so since, things like whether or not to go through a door can cause them to break down because so many decisions, right? Okay. Whatever terrible two kind of personality your child has, because different ones the terrible twos are trying because they're trying to figure out all of these frustration issues. But they all do it with kind of their own personality. Some of them yell and throw a temper tantrum. Some of them get silent. Some of them throw things. Some of them bang their heads. I mean, some of them do all of the things.
Some of them just run into their bed and put their covers over her head and just don't want to talk for a little while.
Okay, here's the secret. Whatever that personality is, you will see it again at 12. It's their teenager personality. You will, all of the things and stuff you will find you can modify once you figure out what works for your child at the age of 2 or so. You will modify those strategies for your teenager. So just helpful tip for one day, you're actually seeing your child's frustration coping mechanisms come online, and he or she will have them again when they are young teenagers. It's the first little bits of independence, and then it's the real pre-adult independence.
Yeah.
But it's the same dynamic.
Yeah. And that's great. And that's looking ahead. But today we
are talking about, so you've just had the baby.
It's early days.
It's early days. You are.
Can we wait a minute?
Oh no.
Can we start at you're driving to the hospital? I just want to say this because every time I go by where Hallie was born, I always think about driving to there and not being a dad. Like she was in Lauren's belly, obviously, and then leaving and being a dad and understanding that there is, people talk about it, and I'm just talking about it right now, but that monumental shift where you are no longer living for yourself anymore. That now there's this human being that literally depends on you for everything.
Yes. Okay. And I'm going to add one twist to that because there's an interesting thing. And I'm glad you brought it up, actually. He's a dad. That's
I'm a dad.
Not actually uncommon for him to notice the change right there.
Of course.
Women, of course, the whole baby thing happens in our bodies. That transformation, oh my gosh, I went from being my own person to being totally and completely responsible for another being. That happens earlier.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens for women when they pee on the stick. Sometimes it happens when they first hear the baby kick. But, well, we might as well say this thing because then it sometimes causes problems in relationships, where women have kind of already gotten to that point and dads aren't quite there yet because it's not concrete yet. By the way, they tend to be very concrete kind of creatures in general.
You mean to tell me that somebody would be playing video games at the time that it was ready to go to the hospital?
You were, weren't you? I don't think that is a theoretical story. I think we're actually hearing.
You mean I got called down from the hospital and was like, I have to go pause my game? Excuse me? To then come home and realize I actually never touched that game ever again. It's actually like a really sort of cool thing. It's like, that's when it happened for me. It's like, oh no, I'm playing my game. It's time to go to the hospital, whatever. I'll do it. I'll pick it up when we get back. No. That's over with now.
Yeah.
It comes back later, but it's over with for now. Anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But be aware that those mental milestones they don't happen at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they certainly don't.
And you can save yourself a whole lot of grief and doubt about relationships or whatever else if you just kind of realize and accept that they happen. They just don't happen at the same time. And then you can shrug it off and
move
go
on.
Right. For Jim, it was actually, we came, baby showers. So I'm heavily pregnant at this point. And he actually had a 1-2 milestone, or 1-2 hit on his, but I'd unloaded everything from, I'd set up the baby's room.
Oh yeah.
And this is like about a month before Patrick arrives. And all of a sudden he's sitting in the baby's room going, we're having a baby.
This is actually happening.
And I'm like totally unable to breathe and everything. I'm like, yeah. And then the next one was the actual holding of the child. Like, oh, got it.
Okay.
Got it. This is what okay, fine.
Yep.
Everything was one way.
Yep.
5 minutes ago. Now it's this way.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you get, and it sounds tough because all you're hearing right now is here's all the stuff that you have to give up. Like you got to die to yourself. Now you live for this kid, the whole thing, blah, 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 blah. But what you don't get by us telling you is this incredible amount of love that
It's
happens
awesome.
at the same time.
It's awesome.
And
Even
that-
for the sleep deprivation.
Yep. And so
and the teenagers.
the things that you gave up, the things that you think that you cared about, they don't even hold a candle to when you hold this little baby.
Right.
And it's a whole different ball game. So I know you hear that and it's like, but trust me, when it happens, it's a whole different thing. So that's all I want to say.
So now
Let's
you've
roll.
gone to the hospital. The baby is born.
Yes.
Okay. So we're 0 hour to about the first 2 weeks. And lots of people are like, okay, well, not much is going to change now. I just have this baby. And, okay. Thing that was going on with my cohort when we were all having babies was, okay, well, we're just going to schedule them. 0 to 2 weeks has no schedule. That's its schedule. It's random. All of it is random. The only thing you care about from 0 to 2 weeks, as mom at least, and by the way, for most of this, I nursed. You could easly bottle feed. The life administration of it, the practicalness of it changes a little bit depending on whether you're a bottle feeder or you're a breastfeeder. By the way, bottle feeding is not poison. I mean, don't let. The only thing you care about for the first 2 weeks is for baby to hit the birth weight milestone at 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So most people don't know this, but babies, they come out at a certain, let's call it 7 pounds. They tend to lose some of that body weight in the first few days after. They're actually fine. They have something called brown fat on their back. So like, for instance, if the baby is not fed within the first, obviously this is not ideal, but there have been times that babies aren't fed in the first couple of hours, and so baby's fine. And babies actually, they come out, they tend to be very active, and then they tend to sleep a lot for about the first 24 hours. It's a bit weird. And so sometimes people panic on my baby's sleep. Obviously the baby's just been born. The baby needs to eat. The baby does have, life has made its, what's the word I'm looking for? Safety net.
Yeah.
And the brown fat, right?
Yeah,
so
it's like they come with a little battery.
Right. They come with a little battery, kind of like
baby
that.
Battery.
Exactly. So they tend to lose some weight the first couple of days. And what doctors want to see when you bring the baby in for the 2-week checkup is that they've re-hit their birth weight or past it. Great. Wonderful. But if your baby came out at 7, dropped down to 6'3" when you left the hospital 3 days later, and is now back up to 7'8" at their 2-week checkup, good. Pretty much for the first 2 weeks, that's all you care about.
Yeah. 100%.
Don't worry about schedule, because you've got you've got to learn how to diaper the child. You've got to learn, there's all sorts of and by the way, especially if you have a little boy, you've got to worry about how to diaper. So little boys, they pee with an erection, which means it's sticking straight up. So if you don't and they have no hips really, because their skeleton's different, and right now they're really not much more. They're tiny little skeleton, right?
Little gummy bears.
Right, exactly. So if you don't really tightly diaper them, they're going to soak everything every time they go pee. I spent 2 days going through that before I called up my nurse. I had a girlfriend who, one of my mom mentors, was a NICU nurse. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And by the way, this was not the first child that I'd ever diaper. We talked about that in the Preparing for Baby episode. This is one of the reasons why. Before or when you're pregnant, spend some time hanging out with other babies so that the first time you diaper a baby is not your own kid.
Yeah.
Right. But even then, and I diapered plenty of little boys in my day, and my son was whatever. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're doing it loosely, aren't you? Yes.
Yeah.
Tight. Little girls, I found that out with my next child. Little girls don't need to be so tight because, well, the anatomy is just different, and
it just works a different way.
It just works a different way.
Absolutely.
Right. Right. So you have plenty of stuff like that to worry about in the first 2 weeks, and the birth weight thing. There's nothing else going on. Then this is especially true if mom is nursing, but it's true even if she's not, because there's still physical recovery and stuff. Dad's job is everything else. Mom's job is baby and recovering from childbirth, however it was done. Dad's job is everything from making sure the dogs get fed to the wife gets fed to the mail gets checked. All of it. All of it.
Here's a really good analogy. Imagine, dads, typically, I would say it's not a stretch to say that we like football, and we're in Texas for crying out loud. So like if you're an offense, your job on the offense is really simple. It's to play the other 10 positions while your wife plays quarterback.
Yep.
So your job is to, as an offensive line, protect her. It's to move your family forward. It's to make sure that like whatever is literally, hear me when I say this. My eyes are closed on YouTube. So and I got the fingers right now. Hear me when I say this. Your job is everything else. Mm-hmm. Leslie just said it, but I want to make sure that you get that. I don't care if you have never done chore A before. You go get you a YouTube video and you figure out how to do it. Because if you go back to your wife and say, hey, like, where's the cleaner? Where's this? Where's that? That's not helping. Okay. She doesn't want to be answering 150 questions about how to do whatever because you are ill-equipped to do the job. The reality is, if you had any sense, which of course I didn't, so hopefully you will have some sense, is that you've learned to do some of these jobs before the baby came, right? But no, I was too busy like leveling my warlock in Final Fantasy or something ridiculous like that, right? So your job is to protect and isolate. People are going to want to come visit. They're going to want to do all these things.
Talk about that a little bit beforehand, but even then, your wife is a hormonal cocktail after. I mean, you thought there was a pregnant because as soon as the placenta detaches, are actually the hormonal cocktail that comes just to reverse everything that it just took 9 months to build, and now it's going to reverse it in a matter of hours, really sometimes in a matter of minutes. Whatever y'all, do discuss it beforehand, but recognize that it might change. And oh, by the way, that's with a normal delivery. Like, what if you had some injury or something like that, and there needs to be some more recovery? Like, you kind of got to read, okay, no, we really can't take any, help other than her mom or her sister, which in general is probably going to be easier for mom to, obviously details may vary, but generally moms are pretty good at being helped out by their own side of the family. Just a practical tip. Not always the case. I had some pretty awesome sister-in-laws, but even then in the early days, and I had my relationship with my mother got significantly repaired by the birth of my first child, precisely because she was there the whole time and helping me.
That happens, huh?
Yeah, it happens.
Strange.
Shocking. I mean, we know about this.
Go figure.
So talk about it beforehand, plan for it, but then be able to read and adapt.
Yeah. And so we're just using that whole football analogy that you're playing the other positions besides quarterback because, mom is taking care of that. But there's also this other thing that you have to do is you have to be the cheerleaders as well, meaning that like you have to support and encourage. And it's not enough, dads, hear me. It's not enough just to do the things. And we talked about it in the last episode when we're kind of training up our kids and to do chores. It's with a smile on your face, a song in your heart. Leslie just said, like, all of these hormones, everything is going to be shifting. Like, I love my wife, but those first couple, like it was up and down, and it was tough to sort of. I generally can get read the room, right? I can sort of read the room. There's no reading the room.
No, because the room is totally changed. Right. The room is totally different.
It's changing by the second, right? You can't read fast enough as fast as it's changing. So don't try. Just know that like the room always needs to be loving, supportive, taking care of. How can I help? Lifting up. And then, oh, by the way, all of that covered with this incredible amount of grace because things are going to go sideways in these first 2 weeks. And you're going to miss diaper the baby, and you're going to go through your entire wardrobe of clothes in about 2 days and need to send your husband or your mother on a Target run to buy onesies because you were completely out. And maybe you did your wife's laundry for the first time and you put the dryer setting on the wrong thing. And now
Right. Oh, and by the way, you're doing your wife's laundry, which I'm just going to go ahead and be gross here. When she's bleeding and leaking a whole lot of weird stuff. Like, like this, you're doing laundry when it's not easy laundry.
Yeah.
This is not just, I'm going to do a load of whites.
Yeah. So
I'm doing some of the messiest laundry I've ever done. Meconium, which is the first poop that babies come up with. Disgusting, tarry stuff.
Yeah.
That's kind of greenish and black. I mean, it's just, this is advanced laundry skills, people.
Yeah. It's not amateur hour, right?
No, which is one of the reasons we talk about so much of the Life Administration 7, we talk about basic households and setting laundry routines and stuff. It's one of the reasons we hope that many of you are, say, in their early 20s, post-college, right around there, because if you are learning these things as you go, okay, when you hit new parent phase, this is advanced life administration. Like,
right.
If you're learning the skills for the first time, or if you're using the skills for the first time, you're going to be really hard strapped. I mean, it's going to be difficult. Yeah. Whereas if you've been doing them for a while, it's still going to be difficult, but it's a little bit more doable.
Yeah. Great. Okay, good. I think that covers our first 2 weeks.
Right. So first 2 weeks, we're out of this milestone when you go to the doctor and the birth rate is right.
Yes.
Or birth weight. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. Then we get into the 2 to 6 week zone. Okay. It's a little bit easier here. Or when you start to, you're still not going to have much of a schedule. There's a couple of surprises coming your way. The first one is easier to negotiate if you have, if you're bottle feeding, if you're nursing, you need to watch out for this one. Which, let me just put a note in here about nursing right now. Okay. Lots of people will tell, because they want you to nurse and, all the medical stuff. They want you to nurse everything. So they're going to tell you how convenient, easy, and cheap it is. 100% correct. After 8 weeks.
I was like, but it's kind of a fallacy. But then
it's
not.
After 8 weeks. The 8-week slog to getting nursing a slog, painful, sleep deprived, starving slog. Do not think that, just because I'm going to nurse the baby, so it's going to be convenient from the start. It is not. Just get that out of your head right now. And with this 3-week, first of all, the 2 weeks that we just talked about of getting baby up to the, because here's one of the things, your boobs don't come with hashtags. Right. Bottles do. So I can tell how much, and you're like, well, that's no big deal. When you're a brand new parent, 2 brand new parents trying to decide whether or not the baby's doing well and thriving, the ability to know whether or not they took 1.5 ounces or 2 ounces of fluid is huge, huge. And you can't tell that when you're nursing. Okay. So one, it creates a whole lot more extra angst right at the very beginning. Then, babies are almost clockwork on this. They hit a food demand at 3 weeks.
They sure do.
Right. Now, nursing is a very, very, very life administration kind of thing. It is a practical skill. It requires a little bit of practice, and it requires teaching by somebody who's actually done it before and knows what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And my husband called it this, the Boobies for Dummies class that you go to before you have the baby.
No.
Minimally helpful. I think, because they kind of set up expectations. First of all, they tend to be the kind of things that tell you, it's going to be convenient. It's going to be like this. They tell you to look for patterns when I'm telling you 0 to 2 weeks, there are no patterns. You might have a cluster feeder. You might have a weak feeder. You might have a baby that you have to teach how to feed, especially if they're slightly preemie. You might have a baby that is a barracuda that is just latches on and doesn't let go to the point that you're in pain. All of those things. And I just don't. The biggest thing that you need if you're going to nurse is you need the lactation consultant in with you.
Yeah.
I mean, she's going to ask things like, okay, can I hold your boobs? Because she's going to help put your boobs in the baby's mouth. You kind of need that hands-on practical advice. Right. You just do. Because it's hard to figure out at the very, and you're already nervous about it, especially with your first kid. Okay. The 3-week demand comes up. your milk supply is a supply and demand kind of thing. So how much the baby sucks is how much your boobs are told to make, right? So food demands come on when the babies just start to, normally you're like, okay, well, usually they feed for about 10 minutes. Well, and then in 15 and they're still latched on and they're still going to, okay. Your boobs are actually making the milk, right? It's just not coming as fast. And so they're having, and also 2 days of them latching on for 15 minutes rather than 10 minutes at around 2:00 within usually 24 hours, your boobs are, and they'll just make more, right? And so that's how the baby prompts your food demand. So at 3 weeks, a lot of moms who are, okay, well, my baby did just hit their birth weight. Okay, that's great. So I think we're kind of, okay, I think we're going to make it. And then all of a sudden the baby's just eating all the time. And just like, what in just let the baby latch on and eat as much. Right now, we're not worried about sleep patterns. We're not worried about the baby falling asleep in your arms or falling asleep on your breast. Don't worry about any of that. Play through the 3-week demand.
It's not important. It's not important.
Right. It's not important. Play through that 3-week demand and know, because about 3 weeks is, you kind of have the stamina to go, oh, well, here, I'm going right into parent sleep needs.
Yeah.
Okay. You basically have the stamina to go sleep deprived for about 3 weeks.
Yep.
And by the way, here's where we get into the hours. Sleep deprived. By sleep deprived, I mean less than 2-3 hour sets a night.
Right.
So less than 6 hours, but broken up. Okay. Yeah. Most of us have the stamina to endure that for about 3 weeks. And for the first 2 weeks of nursing, you kind of need to. Because here's the other, everybody's like, well, I'll just have, because we want dad to do 50-50. And so we want dad or somebody helpful to do a night feed. But I just talked about supply and demand. I've seen many a nursing relationship get messed up, or balance get messed up, because somebody helpful at night is feeding the baby. And so your boobs get the wrong idea about how much milk they need to make. And then you're like, well, I'm not making enough milk. And then eventually you give. Nursing is sleep deprivation, difficult, all of that stuff for the first 6 weeks easily, probably 8. It doesn't get convenient until 8.
But then it does get convenient.
But then it does.
And then it
does.
does.
But then it gets ridiculously convenient.
And
but
that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. So parent sleep needs at the beginning, especially if you're nursing, you need to aim for getting 2-3 hour sets for sanity. After 3 weeks, you will be like not functional human, mental function decreased.
Yep.
Okay. If you get a 4-hour stretch at night, some semblance of sanity starts to return. Like you can feel that you're sleep deprived. You can feel that you're kind of out of control and that you're moody and all that kind of stuff. But at least you can kind of see it, which means you kind of have a hope of controlling it.
Right.
Okay.
I know that right now it's like, I know that I'm tired. Like that's what 4 hours of sleep gives to you. Exactly. I know that I'm tired.
I know that I'm tired, and to the fact that I just snapped at so-and-so, I should probably apologize to them, but I think I'm too tired and I'm going to go to sleep.
It doesn't actually change anything. It just, maybe you can, we said it, round the edges off, but
precisely.
That's it. Like it's still going to be what it is.
Precisely. Okay. For sanity, for actual sanity, you're aiming for a 6-hour stretch. When you get your first 6-hour stretch after a baby, which sometimes comes around 6 weeks or so, 6 to 8 weeks, goodness gracious, you think you can run the marathon? You can't. You can't actually run the marathon, but you're going to feel like it.
Yeah.
Because you would have been so sleep deprived. So all of you who are sitting here like, oh yeah, I used to pull all-nighters during finals week.
Whatever.
Okay.
Right.
I'm talking about sustained sleep deprivation that is cured by a 6-hour sleep. All right.
When you get your first 6 hour, and I mean your very first 6 hour sleep, here's what happens. You get your sleep, you wake up. Yeah. The birds sing. Everything is wonderful. The laundry is folding itself, but it's like you're this car. Okay. And you just went to the gas station and you filled up. Right. But what you don't realize is that, 6 hours of sleep pre-baby, your car got 30 miles to the gallon. And now that you have a child, your internal car gets 1 mile to the gallon. So you might have been filled up, but boy, that gas tank, it drops real fast. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm going, and I'm
That's
done.
an excellent way to explain it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I'm done, right?
Uh-huh.
And so you feel like you can take on more than you can. And so my advice is just like, get your 6 hours and chill. Like still just keep doing your thing. Don't try to save the world after your first 6 hours, right? You're like, you will go,
or clean the entire house.
Yeah, all of these things have fallen apart because, my significant other doesn't know how to do anything.
Right. Just keep playing through.
Keep playing through.
Playing through.
This is it's a short game, but it's a long game.
Yes.
It just feels very long, but it's short.
Exactly.
Nice.
Okay. The one thing that you should be working on at this stage is day-night reversal. It is very, very common for babies at this tiny age to think that, 2 a.m. is playtime and 2 p.m. is sleep time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you want to start working on that. Now, it is not the time to start like solid scheduling or anything. So just aim for keeping the baby more, not hard because, by the way, tired babies don't sleep well and are cranky.
Yep.
Right. So you and a baby at this age is still sleeping a whole lot. That's one of the funny things when you have a second child. You're like, oh my gosh, I forgot how much they sleep for the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
They sleep a lot the first 6 weeks. Okay. So all I want you to do is think about in the middle of the day, have the windows open for natural light. Natural light, sunlight is your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Have the windows open for natural light. Have all of the house volumes even when the baby's napping, the house volumes are normal. Don't turn everything down. We'll change that later when we're trying to set napping schedules. But for right now, we're trying to fix day-night reversal. Yep. So all of the sounds, all of the lights are normal for daytime. When baby is awake and feeding, maybe a little bit eye contact and playing, tickling and nibbling of toes, cooing, all of that active stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if baby, is normally falls asleep after their feed immediately, well, and if you can keep them kind of awake for 5 minutes or so.
That's all we're talking here. Yeah.
All we're trying to do is teach baby that daytime is playtime and nighttime the opposite. Even if baby is all cooey and everything else, feeds are during low lights, diaper changes, everything. It's all no nonsense. I mean, it's not that there's no eye contact or anything, but lesser eye contact. There's no playing in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds are subdued at night. Lights are low so that you're just kind of at these hours, we're calm and we're quiet. Okay. That's it. That's the only schedule tweaking I want you to do. Usually if you do that pretty consistently, by the time 6 weeks comes along, daylight reversal should have reversed itself.
Yep.
So that now baby is generally more awake during the day, probably at 6 weeks still has 3 or 4 naps a day. But to the extent that they have a long sleep, and bless you if you get the 6-hour first sleep during right about week 6.
I don't bless you. I curse you. I curse.
He had a hard time with the sleep thing. If you get that, then great. You want to be aiming for the long sleep to be happening in the middle of the night.
Yep.
And the 4 naps kind of to be happening in the middle of the day. And then generally for the baby to be more active and alert during the day and everything to be more subdued at night.
Yep.
Right.
That was, and this is my first child filter coming through here, is that was a miss for us, is that we didn't do a very good job of that. And that, some of her naps during the day would go so long, but then at night, and it took a long time to reverse that. It took a long time.
Relatively, because I'm talking about, we're 2 to 6 weeks. We're looking at a 4-week period here.
Yep.
I'm telling you, if you do these procedures in this window,
you won't end up like me.
It reverses in about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
If you try to do them at 9 months, well, bless your soul.
Yeah.
That's just hard.
Yep.
When you've got a trained night waker, getting them to be, and that's another thing that kind of happens here is that, they're still at 2 to 6 weeks. They're still sleeping a lot during the day. And so you're feeling like you can kind of get back to some of your normal routines, and you can take the baby on errands for this, and you can go out and do this. Because you know what? A 5-week-old is really easy to men. I mean, they lay there, they sleep most of the time, they coo and look cute every once in a while to people. You can't do that with an 18-month-old.
No, once they're mobile, it's a different
right.
story.
And then they're screaming and they're louder and they want to get like, so you get a false sense of security, I guess.
That's a good way to put it.
That, oh, okay, well, this is totally easy because 2 to 6 weeks, they still sleep a whole lot.
Yeah.
And you're thinking it's okay. They're sleeping during the day and eventually they'll start sleeping at night. No, you need to actively try and reverse that. But from 2 to 6 weeks, that's really the only thing I want you working on is trying to reverse the day-night reversal. If you don't have day-night reversal, again, bless you. And Ryan and I kind of hate you.
Yeah. No, not even kind of. I can't say.
I mean, every once in a while, some kids just kind of about 3 or 4 weeks just start sleeping through, the night. And by sleeping through the night, I mean 6 hours. So, if you have a 4-week-old that sleeps for their first 4 or 6 hour thing at 2 a.m. to, what's 2 plus 6, 2 to 8 or something. I can't even do that. Yeah. Lucky you.
Time out. Asking what 2 plus 6 is on the Life Administration podcast is not a good look for us. Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm having memories of mommy brain here. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
no,
it.
exactly.
That's it. I'm talking about all this stuff and I'm losing the ability to
it's all coming back. And
remember where my keys are and do math.
I'm recounting 2 of my friends that when they had kids, one of the first things they said to me, both of them were like, oh, our kids are just such great sleepers. My goodness, and I mean rage inside of me towards these individuals. Actual physical manifested rage.
And some kids just do this. It's true.
Yeah, it is.
If you don't have the day-night reversal problem, then count your lucky stars and just move on.
Yep. Yeah. And understand, again, we talked about it in the growth chart and, we're laying out these timelines here and they, freedom within the framework, right? Freedom within the framework. Yes. These are windows that we want to look into, but if one thing kind of fall, that's okay. But you want to, in this early development time, sticking to these windows as much as you can is very, very important because it sets things up later on down the line, so even though sometimes it seems like a lot and maybe you're tired and maybe you feel like you just can't you know what, I'm actually not gonna.
And why do I have to do this with a 4-week-old? They're such an easy baby and I can do what I want to do because if you don't fix it now, fixing it on the 9-month-old is
so much harder
in the tukish.
It's so much harder. I mean, my daughter didn't sleep well. And I'm exposing myself. She didn't sleep well until probably 2.5. And because her dad,
that's miserable.
Yeah. And her dad, not a very good sleeper. I wasn't a good sleeper as a baby. I'm not a good sleeper now. Especially I got a Fitbit and I started tracking because I started to be like this. I think this is kind of an issue. It's a 30-second commercial break, but no problem. I was just like, I was sleeping and I'm looking at my thing and it's like, dude, you slept for 4.5 hours last night. I'm like, well, I was actually in bed for 7. I don't understand what happened. And yeah, so there's a little piece of that as well, right? So
and by the way, things parents did or grandparents did that comes into that a lot because some people aren't great sleepers. Some people are long sleepers. All of that comes into play.
Yeah. Very good.
Right.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay. So then the other thing about 2 to 6 weeks is don't expect a pattern in babies feeding because babies at this age, even in bottle feed, it's a little easier to do what I'm going to talk about next, which is collapse the cluster feeds. But babies feed in clusters. Not sure. The wolfhound is below us and she's just agitated.
I think she's dreaming. Well, she's crying like a baby a little bit.
But babies at this age cluster feed a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So you kind of, you think averages. Okay. So you've read somewhere in some baby thing or somebody's told you that babies feed on average every 3 or 4 hours, whatever, during the day. So you think, oh, that's every 3 or 4 hours. No, on average.
Yeah.
I don't actually yet know a baby that actually does the on average.
Yeah.
What they tend to do is, there's like 4 feeds in the 8 to 10 a.m. thing. And then there's a 2-hour sleep. And then there's a big feed when they wake up. And then there's 30 minutes of nothing. And then 2 more little, they cluster feed. And
yes.
I mean, that's the technical term for it. Okay. All I want you to do right now in the 2 to 6 weeks, Eric, just look at the cluster feeds. Pay attention to where the cluster feeds are. The clusters themselves might be kind of consistent, which is going to help you on the next thing, which is about 8 weeks is when we're going to start putting together a schedule.
Yeah.
Okay. Mom and dad are going to start driving the schedule now at 8 weeks. Notice 2 things about this. One, there was hardly any scheduling beforehand. Okay. A lot of parents think, oh, I'm going to schedule the baby. And then they try to schedule the baby around 4 or 5 weeks and it fails. And then they kind of give up.
Right.
Or they try to really schedule the baby at 4 or 5 weeks and it doesn't hold for a long period of time.
Yep.
Right. And it doesn't adapt. And so it fails later. Okay. Or often if it fails in this phase, then some people, well, scheduling just doesn't work. And so I'm just going to demand feed and demand sleep the entire time, which is how you end up with, his was demand sleep, but how you end up with my baby did not sleep until 2.5.
Yep.
It's miserable.
It sure
miserable.
is. It sure is.
So
it took years off of my life. Just wiped them right out.
well, actually there was a time, so he had a yoga ball that he would bounce
Oh,
on.
no.
So he came in one day because he was teaching lessons. I have to teach lessons standing because she was having a particularly rough night. What was she like? Was she a year yet?
I don't think she was a year yet. I think it was probably like 9. I feel like 9 months. 9 months probably.
That sounds right. We were in the old house. I just remember saying that you had to teach piano standing up. And by the way, you looked just dead exhausted. Well, you want to tell him or should I?
So I'm bouncing on the ball, and and that's what I would do to like kind of calm her down, because Hallie also had some allergies. Like it wasn't just this, but all kids are different, right? Absolutely. And so she had literally, when we got her tested, like over 100 different kind of allergies, right? And a lot of those have thankfully phased out since then. But it upset her stomach, and the way to relieve the acid in her stomach was to bounce her, not rock her, but to bounce her.
And by the way, babies get some are rockers, some are swayers, some are bouncers, some are patters.
Yep. Okay. And we're back.
Yes.
Little crazy doorbell ringage.
I'm surprised we haven't had as many of those as we haven't had. But
anyway, so I'm on the ball. I'm bouncing Hallie, right? And then, and this is a particularly tough night where she's like, I feel like I can't get her to fall asleep. And so, I start bouncing aggressively, right? So, I'm up and down on this thing, and about 4 minutes into it, the ball, I come down, it pops. And I fall
hard. And of course he's protecting the baby.
Exactly.
Hallie she
didn't even know anything happened. And so I hit the ground
Dad
hard,
was
and I'm just down, and I'm just like, Lauren, she comes in the room, and I'm on my back, and Hallie's like,
there's
basically
pieces of yoga ball.
Yeah. And I'm just laying, you gotta take. I actually don't think I can get up for a minute. Went down hard, and so that's when we made the decision. We're going to need a couple yoga balls because you don't know when one of these things are going to give out. But that's what I would do when she was really upset. I would have to be the one to bounce her because I was the only one that could get the motion, So, and there was something like, I disliked doing it, but kind of in a way I miss it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I know.
Yeah, it's weird, It's like she's never going to say to me ever again, she'll never look at me and go, Daddy. Like she would kind of like daddy, like she couldn't get the whole thing out.
You've seen my 17-year-old?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. He used to fit right here under my neck.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Yep. Nice. Okay, so we are parents are starting to drive the schedule.
Okay.
8 weeks to 4 months. That's what we're focusing on.
Okay. So first thing you want to do when you drive a schedule is the same thing we talk about all. Figure out what you want it to be what do you want it to be when the baby's 9 months old?
Right.
Aim for that schedule. So things like bedtime, wake up time. You might not hit it perfectly, but you can now you're driving. Okay.
Yeah.
So when do you want Junior to go to bed? When do you want Junior to wake up? And then from that, now look at things like your cluster feed.
Right.
Okay. and see kind of where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because some of them might already collapse into the schedule that you want. But really, the first thing I want you to do is set the bedtime routine. So whatever, let's just say y'all have decided that you want 7:30 to be lights out time for the little one.
Yes.
Okay. Then set a bedtime routine that is about 45 minutes before that. Do the bedtime routine over and over and over again. Try to make that the one thing of the day that you don't deviate in time, or if mom's the one that does the bath and dad's the one that does the reading, stick with that.
Yep.
Okay. And some babies are much more rigid on that than others. Like some kids come with more rules.
Yeah.
And more expectation of rules. And so some kids will be totally like, once the routine gets established, they'll be totally okay with mom and dad flipping things that they do. Some babies are like, no.
Yeah.
Dad reads the books, mom does the bath, or whatever it is that you had doing it.
Mhm.
Okay. Again, that just kind of comes with the personality with your kid. But the first thing, even at 8 weeks old, pick bedtime, come up with the bedtime routine you want to do before it, and start doing it.
Flip the switch.
Flip the switch. I don't care if you've set it at 7:30. I don't care if baby wakes up at 9 and wants more milk.
Cool.
Totally fine.
Yep.
Totally fine. Set bedtime at 7:30. Okay, here's the other thing about bedtime. Make sure they have a big feed right around them.
Of course.
Okay.
Yep.
And again, I don't care if they wake up 30 minutes later and want a little bit more, because that's a cluster you can kind of start to collapse.
Mhm.
Because now we're talking about the clusters, collapsing the clusters and then moving them.
Right.
Okay. So if you're trying to get baby to bed at 7:30, but baby's had a cluster feed at starting about 8:30 to about 9:45. Okay, well then start really trying to push that cluster to 8:30 and then bring it forward. So
Mhm.
still go through the routine, put the baby to bed at 7:30, let them have a micro nap or a mini play or
Mhm.
whatever it is that they're going to do in their crib. Okay. And even if it's fussing, you can deal with some baby fussing for 30 minutes or so. Okay. Go through the routine over and over again, and then try to collapse that 8:30 cluster feed down to 8:30, and then move it to 8:15, and then move it to 8, and then 8. And by the way, do this like not every night, but like once a week.
Right.
Okay. I'm telling you to do a semblance of schedule, and I've got it set here on the show notes for 8 weeks to 4 months. You got weeks to do this, and it's going to be very, very incremental. And there will be some days because baby will get their first ear infection, or
Yep.
the first tooth will start coming. Okay, there are setbacks, and there are 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Baby gets sick, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, something.
Exactly. Something happens. Try to keep the bedroom schedule as much as possible, and then look at your other cluster feeds and see what you can collapse, so that suddenly you can start to say, okay, well then the morning feed's going to be about, the big morning feed's going to be about 8:30.
Yep.
Or whatever schedule that works for y'all. It is much, much, much easier to train a baby at the 8 weeks to 4 months schedule, or the 8 weeks to 4 months range,
Mhm.
than it is to train a 9-month-old. And
Yep.
don't even think about training an 18-month-old.
Yeah. No, that's you've lost that battle. But bedtime as a new parent, it's been off the rails for 2 months almost at this point. And you have been catching things off the table and all that sort of stuff, just to like keep this thing afloat that you're calling your life, right? At this point. But now, you probably hear the phrase, this isn't my hill to die on. Bedtime as a new parent, this is your hill to die on.
Yes.
This, like, if
you follow nothing else
Yeah.
in this, about 8 weeks old, pick a bedtime, make a bedtime routine, and stick with it.
Yep. It's your hill to die on. You're not going to give up on it. When there are setbacks that come, you're going to want to give up. You're going to get frustrated. Oh, you just take care of it. No, this is your hill to die on. Your control, your scheduling, your flows, your ability to understand the ins and the outs of what your life is going to look like 6 months from now starts with this bedtime. It all goes back to bedtime.
Mhm.
So I think the advice that you just gave there, number one, I don't think is given out enough. Just in general about collapsing these feedings, shifting it incrementally, understanding because like
picking your schedule and adapting to it.
yes,
Like too often we just kind of think, oh, the baby will naturally kind of fit into a schedule, and they don't.
Yeah,
they need you to guide and prod and steer.
That's why they're babies.
They're babies.
If they were babies, they do it on their own. Right?
And besides, if they did do it on their own, they're a bit of little tyrants.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they really are. They are just,
like an adult baby just running around, just like opening up the fridge. Okay. Enough. All right. Okay. Speed round. Here we go.
Okay.
We're going
in. Okay. Now, note something that we haven't talked about, and we're now at 8 weeks.
Yes.
Any of the other life administration except for what dad does when baby is tiny. Okay. All of that stuff has been on emergency mode now for 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Now is the time as you're starting to get a semblance of, now you can start dealing with, oh my gosh, there's an explosion of laundry.
Yes.
Okay. Not that you haven't done laundry this whole time. I'm not saying wait 8 weeks to do laundry, but now you can start, a little bit more about the rhythms of things like laundry. And so you can adapt to them. Now is the time to start adapting to these new family norms.
Yes.
This is about the time that if you've managed to make it this far in breast, and you've probably had at least one, maybe two, I can't remember, 1 or 2 more milk demands. But if you made it through the 3-week one and you know how to do that, then the next 2 are not that bad.
Yeah, you're going to see
what
it.
To do, right? Yeah, you see it coming and you're like, oh, cool. And you just decide to sit down for the day and feed the baby all day. In about 24 hours, it sorts itself out. Now all the convenience that we talked about in breastfeeding, now it finally starts to show
pays off. Yep.
Now it starts to pay off. Oh my gosh, you always have the food source with you. It's just most likely you've figured out which bras and stuff work for you. I mean, it just gets easier.
Yeah.
You're starting to see the semblance of a new, this was kind of shocking to me. And then when I was talking to a girlfriend that had been through it before, realized I wasn't alone. And I have now since given this piece of advice or talked about this point a lot with new parents. Before you have children, you would often, if you were going to go out to dinner with friends or if you're going to go to a movie or what, is 7:00 at night is kind of a live time to be going out and meeting friends and doing other social things, having a meeting, having a conference call, whatever it is. 7:00 is okay. I can kind of do that. It's another decade before 7 p.m. 7 p.m. is now a really, and about 7 p.m. It kind of depends on exactly how you set your family schedule. But about then, your life is really, because this is the bedtime that we're trying to defend.
This is your hill to die on.
You are not available in the evening hours anymore.
Don't even look at me at 7:00. Anybody else that's not in my house.
You can meet the friend or have the business Zoom call for late afternoon coffee.
Yep.
You can wait until Junior goes to sleep, and after things get a little bit more scheduled, even have a babysitter come in, and you can meet friends for cocktail. Or you can do the really old fashioned thing and have friends come over at like 8:30 or 9:00 to share a nightcap and then go. Like, your social life doesn't have to end.
No.
Your work life doesn't have to end.
No.
But it's not happening at 7 p.m.
No.
Right. Just kind of get that.
This is your hill to die on. Do not give this up. Okay. Hear me when I'm telling you, don't give this up. No, absolutely. That's great. You got to defend that time.
Right.
Just period. End of story.
Right. And I can tell you now, because now with 13 to 17 year olds, sorry, kids. Gosh, we've had 7 p.m. now back as a social thing for 5 or 6 years easily. But yeah, it was gone for about a decade.
Nice. So with about 4 minutes left.
Seriously, that's all we've got?
The sweet spot for 6 to 9 months.
Oh, goodness gracious. If you've generally followed all of this above advice, then 6 months is nice.
Yeah.
Baby's probably eating better, sleeping a bit better. You're getting probably 6 or more hours on a sort of regular basis, and things are starting, because you're going to find that there'll be a night feed in the middle of the night. Oh, so maybe you put baby down at 7:30 and there's another feed at 10:30 or 11. And then the next thing you know, you get a big stretch, and then all of a sudden that 10:30 or 11 feed starts to fall away. Babies are sitting up now. They're really cute. They're smiley. They're interacty. But also when you sit them down on the floor or in their, they don't go anywhere.
They don't go anywhere.
Okay.
You can't damage yourself or other things.
Right, exactly. So they just sit there and they look cute and they laugh
Yep.
at the dog. I mean, it's awesome. And so they're also happy and contented and all this kind of stuff. When they start to get mobile is when that's going to change. And then we're going to start talking about toddlerdom. But how much time?
Which
do we
we're
have?
going to save
We're going to save for that.
for the
because-
next
okay,
episode.
I was going to do a little pre-pep on the toddlerdom thing, but I'm
Yeah.
just going to take all of that.
Yeah, we'll just
And
take
I'm
that.
just
We're
gonna
going to
move
shift
it
it
down
down.
into the,
Just going to move it down.
there we go.
Move it down because we got a heart for kids and
Yep.
we got some stories to tell. To
Mhm.
say, don't do what we did, right? Or don't do what I did. Really is what it boils down to. Anyway,
And I got lucky because I had some very good mother mentors that taught me the bedtime thing.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I mean, really, if you do nothing else, pick a bedtime routine. It is amazing once you lock bedtime routine in, how much other things just kind of fall into place.
Yeah, there was honestly, just a ton of great information. I want to summarize a couple key points because I think it's important. First 2 weeks, no schedule, forget about it. You're hanging on.
You're hanging
You're
on.
hanging
You're feeding
on.
the baby to get back to birth weight,
Right.
and you're trying to heal
And
and
that's it.
repair and make sure that the house doesn't burn down or flood and the dog
Yep.
doesn't die. Right.
Dads, you're the protector of mom and baby, and
Mhm.
that means emotionally with the
Everything.
with the house. Just like
Everything.
that's your job. And by the way, will be your job for a while, right? Going into it. I think in 2 to 6 weeks, the big one there for me, day night reversal. That
Tweak that.
tweaking that, like go back and rewind the podcast. Like just you explained that so well. It was very nice.
Not my first time.
Yeah, right. And then obviously the bedtime routine, that is your hill to die on. That's the best way to put it down. That's not my hill to die on. No, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And it's going to seem kind of ridiculous because at this age, it seems like, but they're so easy still.
Yeah.
They're not going to remain that way.
Yeah. This is the time where you get to like mold the potter. You get to mold the clay, right? And it's like,
or you have your best shot at it.
Yeah. And then after a while, I was like, well, I actually can't mold this anymore. Like if I do it too much, it's just going to break. So in any case, that's great information.
All right.
Very good. Very good.
Toddlers next.
Yeah. Awesome. So I hope you guys are enjoying this series. Again, we're trying to, suss out a couple things for pre-parents and parents alike. But again, a lot of great information. If you haven't joined the Discord yet, click the link. It's in the description. You've been thinking about it for 57 minutes and 26 seconds now. So just go ahead and click it. Come on in. Come say hi. And we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about to help us steer the direction of the show. It's nice. I don't have to do like the whole exit intro thing, right? It's dude, click the link. Come hang out in Discord. That's what
like it. Nice and easy.
That's it.
That's nice and easy.
Other than that, I've been Ryan Talon.
And I have been Leslie Loftus.
And you guys have been awesome. We'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.
Bye.